Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to WCA America 2015. I'm Solid Jake, joined by the Kubi, and we are back with some more Heroes of the Storm.
That's right. Let's talk a little bit about what this event is. Of course, it is sponsored by WCA. Organization is putting a huge amount of money into this event, $19K in prizing for the Heroes of the Storm. That's the most we have seen for any competitive event in Heroes of the Storm. Of course, overall, they are putting in $3.8 million in prizing across all the games. Of course, those games are Crossfire, Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm, and Dota 2. Now, we should talk a little bit about the format, especially the teams that advance from this qualifier event fly all the way out to China for the grand final event out there, and the runner-up as well. They get flown out to PAX Prime for another shot at a qualifying attempt for that China event. But, Jake, let's talk a little bit about the format that we're going to be seeing today.
Right, yeah, so we have all of this big, excellent tournament happening all over the place, but today, this weekend, we have the North American Pro Qualifier. It's going to be a best-of-3 single elimination bracket with $19,000 up for grabs just for this portion of the tournament. After that, we can see that there's going to be all 7 maps available for play, but the one thing that's not available, that's Kale Foss. He came out today, there's a brand new patch, and he will be banned for this first week. But Kubi, you mentioned that there's a bigger picture to all of this, and the top 2 teams from this event will advance to a live finals happening here in Burbank, California for the first and second place.
Absolutely. We have 2 sets of groups, actually, that we've divided the teams up into. Yesterday, we were able to cover the first group that included C9 Vortex, 2 Arc Gaming, Cloud9 Maelstrom, and Stellar Lotus. And, of course, the teams that advanced from that were 2 Arc Gaming and Cloud9 Maelstrom in 2-0 fashion. Very nice. Today, we're looking at Tempo Storm, Cognitive Gaming, Zevron, and Complexity.
And Kubi, you know, we saw some great games yesterday, but like we mentioned, everything's going to be shooken up today, and we have 4 teams playing on this new patch. Let's take a look at the bracket. We can see that on the upper half, the first game of the day is going to be Tempo Storm versus Cognitive. Following that is going to be Zevron and Complexity. But Kubi, let's talk about Tempo and Cognitive.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you mentioned, there is a new patch that just hit the servers today. Like, less than 6 hours ago, we have a full new patch. Of course, there's a lot of changes to the Warriors, but the big thing that I want to highlight is that we have some teams that have shown in the past they have a lot of propensity to be able to adjust to the new meta, right? Tempo Storm, they have shown that they have no weakness in this area, right? They absolutely are very good about getting the adaptations underway right away. So I think that a new patch, absolutely good for that team.
I mean, Tempo Storm, they've shown the resilience, but on the other hand, we do have Cognitive. And as much as they are a younger squad, this could really lend them the new patch could really help them out in a lot of ways because of the ability to just kind of find something that the other team might not be aware of, pull out some crazy strategies. I mean, we can talk about Sonya. She's actually has a lot of potential with this new style. She's got a bit more damage. Maybe they've been toying around with her, but note, it's only been out for a few hours, so everything that all of these teams know is extremely limited. They've been able to look at the patch notes, maybe analyze it from that, try to find some cool, crazy strategies that might exist from this new patch, but we're going to have to find out and see exactly what they can do.
Yeah, Cognitive Gaming really they have shown a lot of improvement, especially since they've been in the ESL Major League over the past couple weeks. We've seen a lot of improvement out of that team, so I'm looking forward to a really nice series between Tempo Storm and Cognitive. But Jake, let's talk a little bit about the second series.
Yeah, I mean, looking back at the bracket, we can see that we actually have the second series of the day, and that is going to be between, I'm blanking.
That's going to be between Complexity and Zevron. Of course, Zevron is one of the newer teams. We haven't actually been able to cast them in the ESL Major League, but that is comprised of a lot of HOTS veterans. We're seeing players like Faye, Fury, Equinox, a lot of players that have been on pro teams previously. I fully expect that these guys have been practicing a ton over the past few weeks. We've seen them in some of the Go 4 brackets doing really, really well. So I'm sure that they found their stride, and they're looking to take down, they are the underdog in this series. They really want to take down Complexity, who has a myriad of tournament results under their belt.
All right, guys, well, we're going to get ready for that first game, but make sure you hop onto the social media and use the hashtag WCA2015. Let us know who you want to see advance into the semifinals. And on that note, we do have the draft just about ready to roll, so I'm giving the players the go-ahead. We're going to get that draft ready in just a few. But Kubi, who are you feeling in this series? Who do you think can take it and make their way to the semifinals?
Oh my goodness! You know what? I'm going to go ahead and say, well, it's hard to say that Tempo Storm isn't the favorite in this series, but I'm absolutely looking forward to see what Cognitive Gaming is bringing forward to the table. Like you mentioned, they are absolutely a new team that's up and coming. But before we even get into any of that, we have the draft up. Let's take a look and see what these teams are bringing to the table.
All right, well, the first map of the day is going to be Dragonshire, and Cognitive has the first pick, first ban. They opt to ban out Illidan, and Tempo Storm follows up with a very quick ban on Tyrande.
Now, this is... All right. Before, previously, we would see Illidan banned out, but it was usually thrown to the second ban, right? We might see something like a throwaway ban. Sylvanas maybe force out the second pick, second ban team to take between Illidan or the Lost Vikings. But we have some changes to the Lost Vikings. Okay, they're scooped up right away.
Yeah.
Things to take a note. Ragnarok and Roll, the longboat raid, there is a 1.5 second stun after they exit the boat.
And that's a big deal.
Huge.
Now, that's only if the boat is actually destroyed by the enemy team. If the full duration is used, that is not the case. But typically, we see the longboat raid be used very aggressively behind enemy lines, trying to lay out a lot of damage. That's now quite risky to do. But Tempo Storm, they immediately scoop up Jaina and Muradin. Now, Jaina, she has so much AoE damage. She has control. She's a big threat to the Vikings, especially if they're clumped up. But Muradin is one of those warriors that has seen quite a few changes in this patch.
Absolutely. Just to run through some of the changes, level 1, the Reverberation talent on the Thunderstrike, that now went from a 33% attack speed reduction up to a 50% attack speed reduction. The Thunder Burn at level 4, that's an additional, they got more time on that, so we're seeing a ton of control over auto attack heroes.
All right, guys. Well, Cognitive is thinking about their next hero. And just a reminder, you'll see that Kael'thas icon on the screen. He is actually not allowed in
good point.
in this tournament. But Cognitive, they have a lot of options on the table. They have one solid damage dealer hero on the board. They're going to scoop up Sylvanas. And in the past, we've seen some cool stuff when you pair these two heroes together. What they can do is they can use Sylvanas to lock down those towers, literally shut them off so they stop firing, and they use the Lost Vikings to split two lanes. This allows them to put 4 members of their team in a single lane to quickly eliminate the turrets.
Absolutely, and that type of strategy we've seen run more often than not on larger maps like Garden of Terror, Cursed Hollow. They could absolutely do it here. It also allows for much more rotation. Hold on a sec. Jake is reeling back in his seat.
Gosh, what?
All right, so Sagara is a hero we really haven't seen a whole lot of. She was kind of seeing a spike in play maybe about a month back or so. Over this past few weeks, not really so much. She didn't see any changes in this last patch. Kerrigan didn't either, to my recollection.
That's correct. Now, Kerrigan has been picking up in the meta just in general, especially paired with Muradin and Jaina. I mean, there's so much synergy with those three. But Zagara is actually very interesting, and I think that the main core idea behind this is using that creep tumor to constantly have more vision, which can allow you to get even more aggression. So as much as they can deny vision with things like healing with the scouting drones and like other things of that nature where you have maybe Oracle on Tassadar, you have that creep spread from Zagara to just give you so much presence across the map. And I think that Tempo Storm is going to be really much in the face of Cognitive throughout specifically the first half of the game.
Yeah, they have very much so lined themselves up a very aggressive style of play. What I'm really excited to see is actually the warrior pickup for Cognitive. So far, okay, they have scooped up Tassadar. That's the other thing we should mention as well, is Healing Ward, the changes to that ability.
Yeah.
It used to be the auto attacks that would take it down. You had to target it specifically. Now it has a health bar that scales up throughout the game, but it can be taken down by AoE abilities. Previously, we would see teams run something like a main support, something like Uther, Rhaegar, Brightwing, and then they would follow that up with what we like to call like a half support, Tassadar. Tyrande, of course, she was banned out in this scenario. We're still seeing the Tassadar picked up, who has a lot of other utility. Yeah. We even saw Force Wall grabbed yesterday.
I mean, it's great.
Right. But what is going to be that warrior pick? We've seen so many changes to the mainstays. Diablo, ETC, ton of changes. Like, we could spend 5 minutes plus talking about each of those heroes and the changes they've seen.
Yeah, but another hero that has seen a lot of changes is Anubarak, and I'm very curious if that would be picked up here. But you look at the other side, Anubarak, once he uses that burrow charge, he's in a very forward, vulnerable position. Might not be the best option, but they have 25 seconds remaining in this bonus pool where they are thinking heavily about which tank they want to go
Sure,
with.
they got time. Take the time to think about it. This is perhaps one of the more important games of Cognitive Gaming's Heroes of the Storm team, their career.
Kubi, I
Yeah.
would go as far to say that this is probably the most important game of both of these teams' careers because of how high the stakes are in this event. Tempo Storm is going to scoop up Brightwing as that final pick, which can even, kind of lead towards a little bit more aggression. She has the polymorph available to just stop the escape for a potential target, and she also has that global presence, that mobility with the phase shift.
Absolutely. Okay, so Tempo Storm showing that they do not at all want to rely on that healing ward, just grabbing Brightwing to make sure that they have that support in that sense. Now, Polymorph is going to have a lot of value. I think that they can throw that down into the Archon, which is going to be a heavy amount of damage output for Cognitive Gaming. How about the Reverberation, Jake? Do you see any use of that in this series? Or at least this game?
If you just even look at the Lost Vikings alone, if they're ever clumped up whatsoever, you have 3 targets altogether, and Reverberation is just going to get the additional efficiency, that 50% reduction on all of their attacks for 3 targets. It's AoE. It's going to be very useful in many situations, so it's going to be a lot of fun to see how the Muradin ends up building in this game on this new patch.
Also, a good thing to mention, too, is that the Archon, if that's what they choose to go, relies heavily on the auto attack damage, and Reverberation could absolutely put a huge damper on that as well. I don't know. There's a lot of ways that they could build this. We might even see Force Wall. We could be doing all this conjecture about this, and Force Wall might be picked. And
I mean, if we look at the composition that we have on the side of Tempo Storm, they have Kerrigan. They have a lot of aggression available, so Force Wall might be what they need to kind of negate some of that, push that Kerrigan back, make sure they're a little bit more safe in those situations. But I think we have the game loaded up and ready to roll, and we're going to hop right into game number 1 on Dragonshire.
Yep, that's right. Let's introduce these teams. On the left-hand side for Cognitive Gaming, we have Ivy Slime's going to be playing the Lost Vikings, doing that multitasking. Hospital on Sylvanas. Sylal's going to be playing ETC. Shot on Tassadar, and Proteges, rounding it out on Uther.
And on the right side of the map, we have Tempo Storm with KO playing as Zagara, one of my favorite heroes. Soldier will be on Muradin, Glaurung playing that infamous Kerrigan of his, Dreadnought on Brightwing, and rounding out the team is Arthalon on Jaina. And here's a little bit of a fun fact about Tempo Storm.
Yeah.
Word on the street is that Dreadnought is back shot calling once more.
Ooh.
They've been making some changes in the team, but when they had that big reign of dominance in the North American meta, in the North American scene, it was Dreadnought that was the shot caller.
Interesting. Jake, speaking of changes, I'm seeing a little bit of a difference to the UI here. What's going on?
Well, with the new patch, the typical UI that we would use is kind of broken. So we are on the default UI, but no matter, all the information is here. We'll walk you guys through each of the talents when we are able to.
That's right. Specifically, ETC, I'm expecting to see a lot of changes to his build. Of course, he doesn't have that Echo Pedal at level 4. Level 7, he does not have the guitar solo, which was, making up a ton of his burst damage potential. I suspect that we might not even see ETC filling out that split pusher role that we might have normally seen in the meta with the stage dive, etc. Maybe things will be shifting more towards that mosh pit.
We will find out, but guys, look at the map. This is Dragonshire. What we're seeing right now is Tempo Storm roaming between the bottom and the middle lane very frequently, and the reason they're able to do this is because the minions actually are slightly staggered. They will reach the middle lane a little bit before the bottom lane, and they're just making sure they soak up all of the experience from both lanes while still applying a lot of threat. If you get in the range of that Muradin, the Kerrigan combo can follow up, and with Jaina's damage output, surely you will fall.
Of course, and the big deal with Heroes of the Storm is the map-specific objective. So if you guys aren't familiar with Dragonshire, there are, of course, 2 shrines located on the bottom and the top. Hold on, Protege is getting a little bit overextended. Glaurung, does he have the combo? Will they be able to follow this up for the kill? There it is!
Oh my goodness, there is the Primal Grasp pulling into the Blizzard of Jaina, picking up a kill, but Kerrigan is quite low. Hospital is on the hunt, and Glaurung doesn't really have any support within his sights, but opting to back up, realizing this isn't worth the risk, goes back. The combo goes down once again, but this time the Impale does not line up with Shot. Shot will be okay, but the aggression is enough to give a very early Dragonite to Tempo Storm.
Didn't even give us a chance to talk about the objective of the map. Of course, they were able to hold both of those shrines on the top and bottom of the map. That allows them to channel the statue in the middle of the map. They can transform one of their heroes into the Dragonite, putting a ton of just structure pressure. As you can see here, they're looking to take down these towers, giving them a nice experience lead.
And yeah, they are sitting with a nice small lead moving into this, but the Dragonite will continue to just move down to this bottom lane, going to try to take out maybe 1 or 2 more structures, but you can see the health pool is quite low at these early stages, and it will be falling in just a few moments.
I was taking a look at ETC's power slide there. I'm going to go ahead and guess that he took the level 1 upgrade to increase that range. Yes, he did. So we're looking already to see the power slide style build that some of us predicted might become part of the meta for ETC. Of course, at level 4, he grabs the width increase. That's 100%, and you slide even faster too. So it's a little bit more difficult to predict ETC's movements. This might even be paired up with the power slide reset at level 20. With the mosh pit, you can move while casting mosh pit, which is absolutely insane. I was playing a game earlier today. That was just too much fun. Way too much fun.
Sounds way too scary, Kubi. We're going to actually have to see that unfold. This is the first game of competitive heroes cast on this new patch in the world, so definitely seeing these new builds, these new styles out of heroes like ETC and Diablo that have seen massive changes is going to be quite the pleasure.
Yes, absolutely. I noticed you highlighted the double in Venom. I'm going to go ahead and guess that was picked up by Jaina and Kerrigan. That just, again, fits to Tempo Storm's style. They really want to make sure they have that aggressive style in the early game. They want to hit that lead, and it's all about getting to level 10 before the enemy team. You have that huge power spike when you get your heroics, and you can make a mad dash to getting any more objectives, taking out fort structures, whatever you want to do. You can make that call.
Yeah, you certainly can. Kubi, let's get a quick update on this Zagara situation. We talked about Zagara early on about having a lot of vision with the creep, but that's not even their idea with this. They strictly want to shut out the Vikings, who typically have a ton of push potential when left alone. Often on Dragonshire, we'll see the Vikings just kind of take the top lane and dominate it, but as you can see, Zagara has clearly been winning this lane.
So we see that the Vikings have been clumped up quite a bit, and we talked about some of the strategy in keeping the Vikings split up so that you can afford the rest of your team a little more opportunity to roam around and maybe even counter some of this aggressive play that we're seeing. Hold on, Glaurung is probably going to use his combo here. Yes, there's a stun to cleanse. Actually, what's going to be able to keep him alive just in the nick of time. Really, really well played.
Yeah, the Envenom went out, so a single Envenom wasn't quite enough because the heals from both Uther and Tassadar would keep him alive. Nice plays there, but it looks like Balog did end up falling in the middle of the map.
Sure, actually this looks as though it's going to provide a little bit more of an opportunity. Shot was actually moving forward to try to throw down that Side Storm to keep him alive. He does have to pop that Dimensional Shift to keep him alive from Arthalon's combo. All right, this is the second Dragonite in a row for Tempo Storm, looking really strong.
Yeah, this is a pretty big deal. We can see that they have about a half-level lead right now, but as they continue to take these structures down using the Dragon Knight, that's going to push them closer to 10, and that's going to give them a big window of opportunity.
Absolutely, and that level 10, we talked about that. It is just such a strong ability to push. I'm curious to see what heroics are picked up, especially ETC, seeing a lot of changes. Who knows, maybe even Muradin with the cooldown reduction on the Haymaker could be a lot of fun. We've actually seen a little bit of, some of the teams have been experimenting with it. Not at all in the commonplace, but who knows, maybe that 10-second reduction on its cooldown, it could find its place.
There are very few heroics in the game that have a cooldown as short as 40 seconds, so that's a great opportunity. But Dreadnought is a bit by himself. The stash forward from ETC will hit him, but Brightwing does pick up that blink heal, and he's able to use that on a minion to get out of the situation.
He might have actually picked that up just as a snap call to get himself out of that situation. Would be really cool. We actually see that ETC also picked up that range increase for his knockback on face melt, but look at this push in the top lane. They see that Cognitive is very preoccupied in the bottom lane, and they might, if there is no response from Cognitive, be able to take this keep. It looks like they're going to back up, making the assumption that they will hearth back, and yes, you can see in the bottom lane they are doing just that.
But they already opened up those walls that took out the towers, and they're going to pick up some bruisers. And while they do that, let's just get an update on all the heroics here in this game. We have the Wailing Arrow, Divine Storm, the stage dive for ETC, Longboat Raid, and Archon on the side of the red team.
Absolutely, and on the blue side, of course, real quick, we do have that blink kill. I'm going to guess that's Ma. Look at the new pretty icon for it. I like that. Avatar is picked up for Muradin, Water Elemental on Jaina, and of course, Maelstrom picked up on Kerrigan. I think Glaurung refuses to use Ultralisk. Says it's garbage.
He says it's garbage, and apparently they're not going to be opting for that Haymaker in this game.
Yeah, one can dream.
One can dream. One can dream. Mercenaries being picked up left and right across the map, but those giants will be eliminated rather quickly. Bruisers have been left alone in the top, and this is something that ETC will rotate up to take care of. And during this point in time where they're still waiting for the next spawn of the shrines, we'll likely see Tempo do exactly this, rotate back to their Bruisers and collect them. That gives them experience and it gives them presence on the map with those mercenaries.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything is all about trying to extend that lead in this rather low kill game, I gotta say. Just the 1.5 kills on the side of Tempo Storm, but you can feel their presence. They have control over all the situations. They're making the calls that Cognitive has to respond to. So honestly, at this point, I'd like to see, while the talent tiers are the same, Cognitive make some plays around the map that force the hand of Tempo Storm.
Yeah, they really have to make something happen because we're about to have another talent advantage for Tempo Storm. Once they hit level 13, that's a window that's right around the corner in which, you know, Cognitive is at a disadvantage.
Yeah, and actually the timing is very nice for Tempo Storm with that talent tier advantage. They do have control of both of the shrines. This may allow them to get their third Dragonite in a row. Cognitive, they cannot let this type of play go unchecked. Honestly, if this just keeps going the way it is, they're always just going to get pushed, you know, without even being able to retaliate with any kills. The kills are low, but the structure damage says it all.
All right, Kubi, it seems like Cognitive is playing almost scared. They haven't even attempted to stop one of these Dragonites. They've been on the backside every single time. Do you think they just need to go for it? Just go in there and try to take the fight?
It's a
or is it
possibility.
passive play like what they have to do?
They are on the quote-unquote death bridge right now, so maybe having the Vikings rotate around to the backside to try to force the hand. We see them diving in right here.
And yes, we have Soldier in the front line with that Avatar just buying so much time. And as the Maelstrom is popped for Kerrigan, oh, the silence comes in, hitting 4 targets on Tempo Storm. And the Dwarf Toss just barely enough to keep Soldier alive. The Stormbolt goes out onto ETC with the Polymorph follow-up. That is going to be enough for a kill. And Arthalon on the Dragonite, going to use the punt to try to get a kill on Shunda, and it is just barely enough.
Nicely played from Arthalon on that Dragonite. They were able to pick up ETC very early on in the fight. That just takes away a ton of the control. Uther is the only one to survive with Balog. And man, that is a rough push that Cognitive has to deal with. They just lost their keep. A bunch of heroes have gone down. Before that fight even happened, you had actually asked me a question, hey, what should they be doing? Should they be jumping into the fight? I think maybe trying to manipulate the positioning there. It's a really scary spot, especially if you're on the offense, to be putting your entire team on that bridge. So if they had flanked around from the backside, but again, there's other things to take into consideration. The talent tier difference was absolutely there. They just hit Cognitive, they just hit 13. Makes it difficult to take these fights on even footing.
It really does, Kubi, but we do see Tempo Storm continuing to keep that lead. They have a 2-level advantage at this point in time, and they're taking these aggressive Giants. Without having all 5 members present, there is no way that this can be contested by Cognitive, and Tempo will be happy to scoop those up.
Yeah, they continue to just sort of roam around the map, taking the mercenary camps as they please. Yes, and let's take a look at some of these talents. Yeah, continuing to spec into that power slide. It just has so many more. Look at this. Yes, it's almost like a mini version of Hardened Shield, right? You get the 25% damage reduction, obviously not the 75% that you would see at level 20. I noticed a lot of sprints were being picked up from Tempo Storm. Of course, they want to get that extra mobility as well. So I think those are the types of plays we can expect to see. Just keep an eye on the ETC. I just want to know what he's going to pick at 20. Because he can go for the death metal.
Yeah, he certainly can, especially with this new Q build. I mean, it's so very cool to see that aggressive style, using that Q to be in your face with the power slide. And there is the stage dive out of Xylol. He uses the power slide forward, but he just barely misses, and Ivy Slime is forced to use that longbow raid. But remember, when it dies, they are stunned for 1.5 seconds. They try to buy time with the Wailing Arrow, but the combo out of Kerrigan is gonna be enough to eliminate 1, 2, and potentially 3 of the Vikings. And Venom going down on Hospital to pick up that kill. We can see Protojays, the shields on himself, not gonna be enough, and that is a 4-for-0, Kubi.
My goodness. A lot of that fight started. I liked the idea that Cognitive had. They realized that they had a window of opportunity, and they saw Brightwing, and they said, okay, she's isolated. We can dive in. We just get the stuns down. If we can take out their lone healer in their composition, Tempo Storm, what are they going to do? How are they going to follow up with this? We'll be able to push through and take the rest of them. But what they didn't know was that there were many members of Tempo Storm hiding just over the wall that they were allowed Brightwing to blink to. It was a nice play. They spent so many resources trying to kill Brightwing, and then the rest of the team was just left with Murd, and he was like, sup guys, what are you going to do? And then you had Kerrigan over on the other side of the lane just dealing with the Vikings. It's not a good situation. I think Tempo Storm handled that sudden initiation very well.
Yeah, they really just made that snap call, got in there, and did what they had to do to win the fight. That will net them an easy Dragonite, and with this Dragonite, they're going to put some pressure on this bottom lane. And while this was being picked up, we saw Zagara in the top lane scooping it up. The rest of the team was down here taking out this entire wall.
Yes, and they have to deal with a 12-minute Dragon Knight. Not the strongest, of course, but I mean, we're talking like level 20. That's when it gets super scary and very, very difficult to respond to, but it's such a distraction. KO actually taking a bit of damage, but look at that heal from Brightwing. Pops that gust of healing. Really nice, and this is the initiation. Once again, can Cognitive make it work? Jaina, this time, looks like to be the target. She pops a sprint. Looks as though she'll be able to get out. The Maw is really nice in isolating a few members. Hospital, is he going to be able to get out? Jaina looks as though she'll be able to walk away, and it looks as though Tempo Storm is going to be able to clean up this fight. Right now it is a 2-for-1 and the chase is there.
The Haunting Wave was so very close to being cast so that he would be able to finish that kill on Arthlon, but Sylvanas did fall. Dragonite still has another 8 seconds, so that's going to be enough to eliminate the keep, but that's about it. And since the Dragonite is about to expire, Tempo opts to back out. This is the smart, safe, conservative play. They just want to make sure they play clean, they play to win, they don't make any unnecessary risks.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, this is the biggest event we've had for competitive Heroes of the Storm to date, and why not? If you're ahead, continue to get ahead. Just makes sense. Continue to rotate around the map, hold that level lead. Right now, this is the best window of opportunity for Cognitive to get back in the game. The talent tiers are now the same. They have the look at this blood for blood. They have the second charge of the Hydralisk. Look at this Critterize. That's even more damage output. If they want to pick the target, which looks as though that is going to be their game plan. I liked the idea to the start of their fight last time, Cognitive. They dived in. They said, Jaina, she's the target. She has the least amount of mobility. She just has the sprint. If we can lock down enough stuns in the form of ETC and Uther, we absolutely can kill her. And I agree. I think that's a great way to try to take these fights back.
I think that's their only way of doing it, Kubi. They're down just about 2 levels right now, but they are not out quite yet. They're still sitting on 1 keep, and 1 fort with that underdog bonus from being behind can really just make the game turn around rather quickly. I like this attempt. Looks like they're moving up. They use the Oracle of Tassadar to try to get eyes on Tempo Storm, but they see the position here over this middle fort. Will they try to do a crazy flank with Vikings? Yes. He is sprinting into the bush.
This is absolutely the kind of play. Okay, it looks like they're backing up, but there is the scouting drone, of course. You have to remember that. KO looks to be trying to make this response, push the Vikings back. They realize that that's a potential threat, especially if the Vikings boat is able to hit some of the backline targets that can be super scary for Tempo Storm.
Just really, really smart, safe by Tempo, just constantly having that vision everywhere. Between the creep tumors and the scouting drones of Brightwing, they see everything coming their way, and it's so hard for Cognitive to make those plays where they can find just the superior positioning.
Jake, what color is the map right now?
The map is pretty red. It's pretty red. Between the creep tumors and the mercenary camps, well, every single mercenary camp is currently being held by Tempo Storm.
Yeah.
And that's not something we see all that often.
Really just kind of paints the picture for how this match has been going. And hold on a second. Ooh, in the form of the polymorph and the stun that almost gets Uther out. He's going to die to the creeps. Yes, he does. Okay, that pulls the healer out for Cognitive. This is going to allow Tempo Storm to take a devastating fight. 2-man Maw gets picked off. The Vikings are out there getting stunned. Pulled in. Glaurung makes sure to finish them off. Dreadnought is the only one who's low enough. KO will be able to get on time. Uses the Bolt of the Storm. And it looks as though Tempo Storm is cleaning this fight up.
Yes, only shot remains, but Jaina is on the job. The Primal Grasp does go in, picking up the kill. That is a very clean ace, and the GG comes out because they are well aware Tempo Storm has the window to move in with this Dragonite and end the first game.
Yeah, that's 15 seconds before any members of Cognitive Gaming are back up. Almost impossible to defend this, of course, especially with the Dragonite being picked up. That's going to do it. Tempo Storm is going to take a nice 1-0 victory. Yeah. Oh, we didn't even get a chance to see what ETC was going to pick up at level 20. That's unfortunate, because I really, really want to see that mosh pit.
Yeah. Oh. Did they in fact do it? No, they did not, guys. Well, that is going to be it. Victory for the red team. Tempo Storm takes the first game, putting themselves at a 1-0 lead in this best-of-3 series.
All right, Jake, how did you feel about the adaptations in that match based on the fact that we're in a new patch? Did you see enough new stuff there, or do you think that was pretty standard to what we would have seen previously?
I mean, overall, it was just generic, clean play out of Tempo Storm, going with the stun-heavy style. We already see Jaina being very powerful since this last patch. Not the one that we had today, the previous patch. They made her have an incredible amount of burst, and they just use Muradin's stun and the presence of Muradin using the Dwarf Toss to jump in, and then using the Kerrigan to leap in and use the Primal Grass combo to eliminate target after target. And they put that fear of death into Cognitive, and they were constantly just afraid to push out past their towers.
Yeah, big credit to the Maws, too. I have to say, I like the timing in which they saved them. It wasn't something that was used to initiate the fight, but they really made sure that they were locking out the back line from being able to move in to provide that support. And then they were just able to clean up members of the enemy team left and right. So overall, everything seemed very nicely executed. They followed up on the boat after it was taken away. The 1.5-second stun, Kerrigan moves in. That's a huge amount of shields for Kerrigan as well, making her even more difficult to kill.
All right, Kubi, I have a question for you.
Ooh, you're asking me the questions.
Do you think they need to throw the respect ban at Kerrigan? We saw incredible play by Kerrigan all game long. Is it worth throwing the respect ban at her?
It's, yes, they need to take it away. I think that's, at least if they're going to play Vikings, I think that it's something that they should look to fit into their composition, either ban it out or look to scoop it up early. We're noticing that this Kerrigan is being picked up more and more early as a pick, and it's doing wonders for teams that grab her to get that early lead up to level 10 and just, it seems like, sweep the game from there.
All right, guys, well, we're going to find out if they do, in fact, decide to ban Kerrigan in this next game in just a few. So we're going to just go to a quick commercial break. Stay with us. Alrighty, guys, welcome back here to WCA America 2015. I'm Solid Jake, joined by the Kubi, and that was one heck of a game one.
Absolutely. We saw Murden picked up. I think that is what a lot of us predicted to be for the top warrior pick, and Tempo Storm scooped that up very quickly. We saw a lot of really nice plays being made by Murden there. ETC, what do you think? What's the verdict?
You know, I like the power slide style, and it's really cool to see teams experimenting with something that's so new in the patch. But we'll see what they want to do with the second game, because we have the draft ready to roll, and we see that Vikings will be banned out right away.
I like this. They said, all right, you're getting enough value out of the Vikings, perhaps. I mean, they saw it was the first pick in the previous game. This might not even be something the Tempo Storm's scared of, but they're just saying, you're going to use this as a top hero that you guys like to play, especially on Cursed Hollow. Vikings get a ton of value on this map.
I think that's the big thing to consider is on a map as large as Cursed Hollow, the Vikings can give quite a big advantage in terms of soaking when it comes to those tribute spawning, because that allows you to throw 4 members on your team to that tribute to fight over it and potentially get a lead. Tempo, they want to just win in the straight-up team fights. They want to win in just a very even scenario. They're saying, look, that's a cheeky play that we just don't want to let happen. And what?
Muradin scooped up right away. Okay, so Tempo Storm, they're on top of it. I think this is the new meta shift. Muradin, top warrior, get out of the way so that Cognitive can't even get anywhere near this pick.
So you know the pick is crazy and new and unique when Kubi makes bird sounds. He actually squawked when he saw that pick. But yeah, there has been a patch today. Now, guys, we just want to remind you that the Kael'thas icon you see on the screen, he is actually banned from this event. The patch just went live today, and he is not available for play.
We need to come up with a nickname for this guy. Kael'thas, that's this tongue twister is right there. I don't know. We're going to have to come up with something.
KT Rolster.
KT Nice. I like that StarCraft reference. Good. Back to the old days. All right. Cognitive Gaming, what is going to be the pickup? Do they want to try to snipe that Kerrigan away? It's something that was a big deal in that last fight. Of course, the Lost Vikings aren't an option, but Tempo Storm showing that they are very well-versed on the Kerrigan play and the follow-ups. Muradin making a big splash there. So the other thing to note, of course, is that Jaina is still available. Always a great addition to any team.
This is tough because we saw Tempo banned out Tyrande in the last game. So they could say, oh, well, they really don't like playing against Tyrande. Maybe we should grab her. But like you mentioned, Kerrigan made big plays in the last game, and Jaina provides just additional damage, like tons of that damage. But they're going to go for a very early pickup on Uther, and they're well aware that Tempo likes the Divine Shield play quite a bit.
Jake, I like to defer my support questions to you.
Okay.
Do you think that the nerf to Healing Ward prioritizes any of the healers over the others?
It makes Uther stand by far the best support in the game. Hands down, no question. I'm on record saying that, and no one comes even close to him right now, but Tempo is happy to scoop up 2 pretty ladies, Vala and Jaina, joining Muradin. He's a happy dwarf right now.
That is some damage. Yeah. They have just scooped up a ton of AoE damage. I'm thinking that all they're going to look to do is scoop up something that is a little bit more CC heavy, if they're allowed to. I'm sure Kerrigan, and then grabbing Brightwing, it seemed to work very well for them in the last game. Why not keep going with it?
Now, I got to give Brightwing a lot of credit, especially on this map. I would say that she is now number 2, especially with the changes made to Healing Ward. Brightwing, I think she's back in her number 2 slot as a support in this game. Polymorph is such a strong spell.
Yeah.
Phase Shift gives her that global presence, which you can never discredit. It's just so impactful on games.
Yeah, Dreadnought was making some really nice plays too, dodging with the blink heal. I think we saw 2 guaranteed kills in that previous nice rotations from Cognitive, but blinking onto the creep wave that was near the tower wave, and then to the rest of the team that was over the wall. So the mobility there was proving to be very effective.
And having the option for Emerald Wind too, everything about her is great. But Cognitive, they need to look at some more damage. Now, Sylvanas, that's a good start, but this is the time when they can start to consider something like Tyrande, and maybe this is the pickup of Kerrigan, because those 2 heroes work quite well together, but so does Diablo. And we saw their ETC play was nice, but have they practiced the new Diablo? Oh, they do go for Kerrigan.
Okay, the scoop. There it is. Kerrigan taken away. Very sure that Cognitive knows how to run this combo. It's picking up so much steam in the meta. They're going to make sure that they're well versed with this, at the very least, to make sure that they can take the pick away from other teams and make sure that they run it well enough. So yes, the Tyrande pickup. There's so much stun and lockdown on this team. You have Kerrigan diving in with the Q, the Ravage, and then pulling in with the Primal Grasp. What's up, Jake?
I'm expecting a new Barak on Tempo Storm.
Tell me why. Tell me why, Jake.
All right, when Tassadar's picked up, I'm glad. I was expecting Anubarak to kind of replace Kerrigan. Now, they've made a lot of changes to Anubarak. He's a bit more responsive now, and his Beetle AI has been improved. So with the lifesteal from the Beetles, the Beetle build, he has more damage output and a fair amount of sustainability. But they are going to go for a more standard style, picking up Tassadar, and then, of course, the Brightwing support that we mentioned.
Yeah, I will say it looks as though it's going to be quite a bit more difficult for Tempo Storm to have that very aggressive early game. Tassadar, a very stable hero, has a lot of vision. They have many ways to counter potential aggression that can be thrown on. Brightwing, of course, can pick up the scouting drone. with the Oracle that
True.
Tessiter has, a ton of vision available for the team, and even some global presence as well. So Cognitive, they're kind of in the driver's seat now with their composition, at least until Tyrael.
All right, this is cool. What this means is that Tyrael has that judgment, that very hard initiation, and they have so many things to follow it up. From the Lunar Flare from Tyrande, the Primal Grasp combo with the Impale on Kerrigan, and the Hammer of Justice of Uther. So many stuns available. It's quite scary to see what they can actually pull off. But Kubi, who do you think is going to win in this game?
I really like the combination that Cognitive has picked up. It's going to really be, they're throwing the onus onto Tempo Storm. They want to say, we're going to throw this crazy composition at you. Tyrael's going to dive in. Like you mentioned, Kerrigan with the scoops. That is an insane amount of control that is available. But they have a lot of counterplay to it. Of course, Muradin can get in there with the Avatar, with the mini stuns, etc. The Polymorph, like you mentioned. So they have ways to deal with it, but it's really going to be on Tempo Storm to just play the defensive role and try to punish Cognitive for going too far forward in those fights.
All right, guys. Well, why don't you guys get on social media and let us know who you think is going to win. Use the hashtag WCA2015 and tell us Tempo Storm or Cognitive for game number 2. But on that note, I think the game is just about ready to roll, so I'm going to give the players the go-ahead, and we can get this game going. Go, go, go. They have been given the go-ahead. Second map, Kubi. We're going to Cursed Hollow.
Absolutely. So, like we mentioned with this map, it's a little bit larger, and of course the objectives are going to be spawning all over the place. I think Vikings fit really well into this map. Of course, they were banned out. So, a lot of it is going to be about the rotations and how they can pick up the soak. So, we'll be looking to see what the team decisions are. In terms of the tributes, right? They need to, tribute pops up. Do we continue to soak, etc. And the trade-offs that those teams make, at least up until level 10, it's going to be really important.
All right, guys. Well, the game is loaded and ready to roll. Once again, make sure to get on social media and let us know who you think will win. And we are going into game number 2. And on the blue side, Kubi, that's Tempo Storm. Let us get them introduced.
That's right. And, of course, in the bottom lane, we have Dreadnought. Once again, is going to be on Brightwing. In the middle lane, Tassadar will be played by KO. Glaurung, once again. Oh, no, hold on a second.
Oh.
It was Soldier who was on Muradin last game. Now it's going to be Glaurung. Arthlon, once again, on Jaina, actually. And following that out, Soldier is going to be on Fala.
On the other side of the map, we do have Cognitive Gaming with Ivy Slime in the top on Sylvanas. Down in the middle lane, we have Hospital on Kerrigan. Proteges playing Uther, Shot on Tyrande, and Uther will be played by Silol. And Kubi, let's just get a fun fact out of the way. When it comes to Tempo Storm, they actually have very specific, not as specific roles as most teams, but Glaurung will typically play melee assassins. If they don't have a melee assassin like Kerrigan, that's when you'll see him switch to Warrior, and KO or someone else will end up playing, generally Soldier, will end up playing the Warrior role.
Okay, so you mentioned something about the change in shot calling, and oftentimes teams will reserve that role for the Warrior player on the team. Do you think that they maybe are swapping back and forth based on who the Warrior player is, or do you think that's something a team really needs to sort of lock in, practice a lot to get that flow?
It all comes down to preference for each team, but I believe Tempo just has Dreadnought running for pretty much no matter what the scenario is in this case. But we have this roaming gang squad, Arthlon and Glaurung playing as Jaina and Muradin, looking for something to blow up. They see Ivy Slime. A single Stormbolt will lock him down long enough for Vala and Jaina to really lay down a lot of damage.
Yeah, that is quite scary, but that is the only amount of lockdown that's available through Glaurung. So they need to make sure that the CCs are lined up properly to make sure that the damage output is there. Do not give a character like Sylvanas the ability to use the Haunting Wave to escape. You have to make sure the stun's there. I'm not quite sure that they have the ability to. I like this sort of counter-aggressive play, keeping that presence on the map just to make sure that Cognitive doesn't have that same opportunity to roam around.
Yeah, both sides looking for that. Soldier is well aware that this is a potential threat and needs to be careful. If he does get caught by any of the combos here, he is going to be in a very rough spot, but he does have that vault to attempt to get out of some of those situations.
Look at Ivy Slime's position. I like what he's doing. He's sort of just sticking a little bit further forward. He's trying to bait Soldier out into throwing down an ability like that. Just stepping a little bit further past. Hospital's waiting to pull that trigger. He wants to dive on with that Ravage and test Soldier's reactions.
Yeah, we'll see what happens here. In the middle of the map, we still have Muradin sitting there with Arthlon, just waiting it out. Both teams trying to surprise the enemy team while we wait for the first shrine to spawn. And there they go in, but the vault is going to be enough for Vala to get out of that situation. And this spawns a rotation out of Muradin and Jaina. They get the lockdown onto Hospital. Is the damage enough? Vala is going forward. One more hit will secure the kill. Nicely done. The counter rotation is enough.
That was pretty much like a counter bait. So the whole point was to have Sylvanas move forward so that Vala would retaliate, and then Kerrigan jumps in to get that pull. But once they saw that that wasn't effective, that was just like, boom, snap call, send Glaurung and Jaina on Arthalon on Jaina up to that top lane to get the kill. Kerrigan had no utility left. She wasn't able to control the fight at all. Of course, there's like at least 10 seconds before that combo gets back up, and that spells trouble for her.
And Glaurung is just buying time here for Arthalon to capture that first tribute. First tribute going to the side of Tempo Storm, and they have a nice start to this game.
All right, I think we might have a little bit of lull in the fighting. Why don't we take a look at some of those talents? We see, yes, Double Envenom, the protective shield. It looks as though the teams are really starting to say, you know, the healing ward, not so good anymore. Let's make use of that protective shield, which a lot of the supports do have.
Yep. But actually, look at this.
Oh,
We're
you're
actually
right.
seeing Vala pick up this Hungering Arrow build. It's something that we started to see yesterday. It's kind of picking up a little bit of steam, so that's quite cool to see. But yeah, I love these Protective Shield pickups. We do have that Amplified Healing that's going to make Tyrael very hard to eliminate, and we talked about Reverberation, getting that buff in this patch, going to make Muradin a big threat and stop a lot of incoming damage from Sylvanas in the Tyrande.
Yeah, really good point. Yeah, it seemed kind of like War Greymon on Stellar Lotus was the only Vala player that was running this type of build, but maybe now we're starting to see a little bit more acceptance of this style build from the other members. Hey, and if you can get the seal of approval from Soldier, kudos to that.
Yeah, that's a big deal. I believe it's actually inspired by the Chinese meta, which is quite cool to see that happening. But we do have this second tribute spawning, and we see KO using the Oracle to get some vision around here, giving Tempo Storm confirmation on the location of the enemy team. That's when they get aggressive. The Stormbolt does connect onto shot, but the heal from Uther is going to be enough to top him off.
Glaurung looking to keep that forward position to zone out. There's no Pierce on that, and they are going to be able to pick up the tribute. No, it was actually canceled by the smite from Tyrael. A lot of HP is missing for Cognitive. They're going to have to back up. So Hospital gets hit by the center of the AoE damage from
Brightwing,
yeah,
Arcane
oh my
Flare.
goodness.
Very uncommon to see a kill from an Arcane Flare. It has a long lead. It's a pretty slow ability, but nicely done by Dreadnought. Even if he's the support, he can get that final touch, the final kiss to eliminate the enemy.
That's right. And now that is 2 tributes up for Tempo Storm. They're up about a half level at this point. Once again, we find Tempo Storm with a huge lead, Cognitive trailing a bit. We need to see some drastic changes to their playstyle. What kind of changes can we see, Jake?
They need to get a little bit more vision, a little bit more awareness using the Owl, that Sentinel up Tyrande, to really just kind of find a situation and go. Because they had great positioning over that last tribute fight, but as soon as the Oracle was popped by Tassadar, Tempo Storm had the vision, and they just pushed forward as one, and it just looked like Cognitive wasn't confident, and they just flat out backed up.
Yeah, the positioning was very tight, of course. This map features a lot of terrain that is very close, many walls back and forth, and it's super easy to get clumped up with the rest of your team, get caught by many of those AoEs, and it was kind of their downfall in that last fight. Just the positioning at the start of the fight was absolutely all about Tempo Storm.
All right, well, it looks like they are setting up for another potential gank opportunity. This is the kind of thing they need to do, because if you look at the levels, it's 9 to 8, about a half level lead for Tempo Storm. When level 10 is hit, that nets the team heroic abilities, and they need to make something happen to make sure they're not too far behind when that happens.
Yeah, I like the play in the top lane. Arthalon is just being very cognizant of the potential for this gank roll. I mean, he's going to be the target that's going to get picked up. That's the ticket for Cognitive to catch back up and experience in this game. She's a very good wave clearer, Jaina is, but he was respecting that, staying back behind the wall, just clearing the wave when it got to the towers.
Right now we have the Tassadar and Arthalon, who is on Jaina, stalling out this tribute. I can't believe it. They picked up that boss in the bottom lane. They use the silence and the Water Elementals to pick up 1 kill. Now we have the Water Elemental slowing down Kerrigan, played by Hospital. He will end up falling. 2 kills, a boss, and a curse Kubi. That is a heck of a push.
That's disgusting. That's overall, that's just disgusting. I mean, how do you come back from this? That push is going to allow for a lot of split attention for Tempo Storm, they're, as you guys can see, they're taking this top boss. It would be so difficult for Cognitive. They would almost have to all in to try to get this response, and the whole team is there. They're going to for sure lose that team fight, so they have to surrender that top boss, and it's just going to be an insane amount of push. Yep.
Huge cleanse by Protojays. Yeah. Actually, that was a beautiful dwarf toss by Glowering going over the wall. He threw out the Stormbolt to try to stun. If the stun hit, that would buy enough time to actually eliminate him very quickly, but cleanse was used, and he was able to walk away scot-free.
Look at this pressure with the curse. They have the golems pushing in the top lane. The defense is just scattering Cognitive. Tempo Storm putting a ton of pressure into the mid lane. They really want to take this wall down and try to put some damage onto this keep actually before they even have the fort down. They realize that the wave is going to apply enough damage, but this is some really forward heads-up positioning.
Yeah, I mean, that fort is falling rather rapidly. Only 5 seconds remains on the curse. So this is Temple's cue to back up, but is it too late? We do have Vala getting hit by a combo, but not quite enough to lock her down. She will tumble away, and that's going to be the avatar being popped by Glowering. So this means Tempo wants to take a fight, but no, that's kind of a preemptive avatar in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is, it's a fairly high cooldown, and it's absolutely going to be a huge piece of them being able to control that initiation that we talked about previously. It looks as though Silhal is well aware of this. Tyrael throwing that Eldruin's Might over the wall, grants the vision, and is probably pinging his team, hey, do we want to respond to this? Of course, Tempo Storm, they need to try to mitigate any of this control they have over the map.
Yeah, but by having those giants there, that just buys them a bit more time, forcing Cognitive to have to clean those up, and Tempo Storm will be happy to rotate back and grab the final remaining Merc camp at the map at this point in time. Kubi, I think we got a brief moment. Let's take a look at those talents.
Okay, yeah, I see, at least for level 13, Brightwing grabbing that Ice Block, the Thunder Strike. Yep, okay, pretty standard going with that full reverberation build for Muradin. Tassadar grabbing the Prescience. I would fully expect that Dimensional Warp at level 16. Another Ice Block. What do you think about that?
It's actually pretty uncommon on Jaina, but I like it a lot here, especially since they're going to put a lot of resources on killing that target early. We even see Spell Shield on Vala. So both of them are taking they're the two targets that they want to try to eliminate. Tassadar is going to be near impossible to kill early, and this is just going to make them so hard to stop.
Yeah, a lot of this is very heads up from Tempo Storm. They realize the way the Cognitive is going to get in to win those team fights is to have that full dive status with the Judgment being thrown down, Kerrigan following up with that combo, trying to eliminate one of the backline targets. You're right. Those Ice Blocks are going to do a lot to mitigate that.
And look at this, Tempo Storm is in a very aggressive position. They're in the jungle of Cognitive, taking these bruisers, which will then march down the middle lane, which they already took the wall down from. This is going to force a response out of them, and Tempo Storm will use that time to just back up and take more map control, maybe do some split pushing, maybe take the bruisers of their own. They have full control of the situation.
Yeah, they realize that at least for this small window, they have a talent advantage, and that Cognitive is, of course, going to be much less likely to try to pick a fight. So you saw Muradin pushing for that little bit. Boom, they hit level 13, backs up. It's just a real, a sign of a very experienced team.
All right, well, in this moment, we see that it is full defense for Cognitive, taking out those bruisers and the giants. Dreadnought will be happy to scoop up that tribute, while we have Vala and Jaina grabbing even more mercenary camp aggression. Looking down at the boss, another 50 seconds before he respawns, so Tempo Storm will likely put on the aggression until then.
Yep. And again, the name of the game, of course, for Tempo Storm is to get that talent advantage. They realize right now, just keep the lanes pushed out. Like you mentioned, they have the map control. They continue to back up, take those mercenary camps until they hit 16, and then if they want to take that opportunity to push the fight to go for the kill, boom, that's the time to do it.
We're sitting at 4 tributes to 0 at this point in time. Tempo has had that control, and the map is as blue as it gets. They control every single mercenary camp at this point in time, but we mentioned that boss timer, and it's coming off pretty soon. Do you think it's worth the risk of going straight to that boss when there's no other pressure across the map at this moment?
Cognitive's got to do something. They have to get aggressive. They have such a blow-up dive style comp. Make use of it. They have to know right now, at the very least they can see the Brightwing is top. They have that window of opportunity to dive in and get the kills. They have this composition, you have to play to it.
All right, well, the Owl will go through and confirm that there's some health taken away from this. This reveals the position on at least a few members of Tempo Storm, but Tempo is trying to bait them into this. They're not they're playing very safely. As that tribute spawns, they're like, all right, maybe they'll go for the tribute, but that is not the case. Every single member of Cognitive is making their way to this boss, and Glaurung is backing up.
That's right, but level 16 was just hit for Tempo Storm, affords them a much better opportunity to take fights. So I think if Cognitive was going to try to make that push, it would have been just before they hit 16. Right now, like I say, all right, back up, try to get that talent tier advantage. They do have a couple Blood for Bloods available on their composition that they might employ to try to deal with Muradin.
Well, we saw that Brightwing was able to grab that tribute, abusing the global presence that she has. That puts it 5-0 in terms of tributes, and both teams will be happy to back up and grab some Giants. We see them being picked up by Tempo. Here are the Giants being picked up by Cognitive, and this finally gives them a small amount of aggression on one lane, but the talent advantage is still there for Tempo Storm.
Yeah, and the structures too. Look at this. It's they have the whole map, but yes, let's talk about that. The imposing presence. Do you think that's really necessary considering there isn't any big auto attackers available for Cognitive? I almost would have liked to have seen the grab the new talent. Give him the axe.
I think he's just comfortable with the talent, knows how effective it can be. I mean, that's a 50% reduction on your attack speed when you attack Muradin, but we'll see how it pans out in this game. Finally, though, we do see Cognitive going up to their boss and picking this up. This could net them their first fort of the game.
Yep, absolutely. Tempo Storm probably well aware of this, but they're saying, okay, we can also trade this out. Since we have the fort taken down in the bottom lane, we know that this golem is going to push further than you guys are going to be able to. You have to respond to it. It puts the onus on Cognitive to make that response play. This has been absolutely Tempo Storm's mantra the entire time. They've been controlling and dictating the decisions that Cognitive needs to make.
Yeah, but look at this. Tempo is going to push down this bottom lane. They saw that tribute in the top, and they see that Protojays is, in fact, capturing it. This will force a Hearth out of at least 2 to 3, 4 members that have come back.
There it is.
Uther will make his way back, but Brightwing is trying to stall him out, and he's actually preventing the Hearth. If he can't Hearth, Brightwing can phase shift in, and this is just forcing their position to allow that boss back there. Yep. Nicely done, just forcing their hand.
Yeah, it's just, again, superior rotations from Tempo Storm. And Cognitive just needs to make some kind of sneak play at some point. If they keep playing safe like this and just backing up, they're at level 16 now. Now is the time to pull the trigger to go in. Is this the opportunity? Stylall makes the dash, but actually the Cleanse is able to keep Vala from getting stunned out. And that is going to be a huge blow to Cognitive Gaming, and the dimensional shift is on time. Soldier getting a huge amount of value on this strafe, not able to be stunned out. Is he out of position? Does get the vault off. The Haunting Wave doesn't end up making the dash. And actually just a lot of damage output put between the two teams. And surprisingly, Tempo Storm is the one that has to back off.
Kubi, I can't believe Soldier and Brightwing both survived that fight. The fact that Tempo Storm was able to do that just shows the power of Ice Block, saving multiple lives in that fight, and Brightwing's Pulse will heal them up rather quickly. As good as that fight looked for Cognitive, they didn't manage to get a single kill. Tempo falls back, they tap the well, that gives them mana and health, and they will re-engage over this next tribute.
Absolutely, and a lot of resources are spent too. We saw Judgment being thrown down, and with that Cleanse on point, Dreadnought knew, this is how they're going to get in. If we can cancel this, obviously Cognitive says Vala is really the only target that we can try to lock down because of those ice blocks we mentioned. But look at this! Another curse picked up for Tempo Storm.
And yeah, that keep is just melting away. One more shot, that will do it. And Tempo will just rotate up to the middle lane, applying more aggression. Now, the Judgment attempt was there. Do you think that they just have to try it again and see if they can do it? Because they were so very close to eliminating Vala in that fight.
It's tough. They might almost want to try to, fake that out, as kind of weird as that sounds. Sure, throw the Judgment, and you're at least going to get Tyrael in position, and then try to force out one of the other members. It's so tough with all the responses that Tempo Storm has. But there it is. They actually try this one more time. They get the stun. The silence is big. I think that is actually going to be the big turning point in how they're going to take these fights, is the silence. That's a very good point. Glaurung hops over the wall, but he's dipping into enemy territory even further, does end up dying to the damage over time.
That's a big deal. They pick up 2 kills here. That will stall the aggression available for Tempo Storm, but the push still got them 2 keeps, and that is hard to discredit because that will be Catapult marching down the bottom and the middle lane for the duration of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I got to hand it to Cognitive. They answered the question for us. They said if we can land a very solid silence to make sure that Cleanse and Ice Blocks are not able to be thrown up as a defensive measure, boom, that is our window of opportunity to dive in with the Judgment and throw down all of our CCs. It worked.
Yeah, and here they are marching in. They take out a keep in this game, so the top lane will give them catapults for the duration of the game. Tempo Storm is almost back alive. Vala respawning in 1 second. Muradin's got another 8, and this is going to have Cognitive back up to push those lanes back out because that bottom lane is completely marched forward.
Sure, for the first time in this game, it feels like they're able to back up and take some form of map control. They can actually split up a little bit, take the Bruisers, take the Giants in the bottom lane, and try to form some kind of offense. Right now, it just feels like the whole game they've been responding to Tempo Storm. This is the time to try to make those forward plays.
All right, well, we can look at the boss. It's still another full minute on the top boss and another full minute as well for the bottom boss, so that's not an option. 19-19, they have evened out this game.
Yeah.
Pretty low-kill game overall.
Yeah, absolutely it is, but the kills that have happened have absolutely mattered for sure. For Cognitive, I like their approach to that team fight, and they just need to try to find ways to manipulate the positioning so that they can land those money silences.
And those money silences will be lended by the triple blood for blood because it's only Brightwing. If Brightwing is silenced, she can't heal them, she can't keep the team alive.
Yeah, good point.
The blood for bloods are 15% of your total health pool, and when you throw 3 of them, that's 45% of the health of Muradin or anyone in your face.
Yeah, that's true, and that's just, it's a lot of damage almost that you're not expecting. Of course, these teams are well-versed playing against it, but it's targetable, instant damage, and of course, HP back for your team.
All right, well, Glaurung is going to dwarf toss himself over that wall to make sure he is good and safe, and the Sentinel will reveal 2 members of Tempo Storm. So they have an idea of their location, but there is another tribute. Currently, the tribute count is 6-1 in favor of Tempo. Looks like it's going to be 7-1 as we have Cognitive posturing for the Grave Golem that just spawned.
Yeah, I think that they should have enough time to take this. Now, I got to say, with that last team fight, and particularly the push that happened in the top lane for Cognitive, they basically just opened the door to said, if you mess up one more time, you're done.
Yeah?
You're done. We can push in the top lane. Now, obviously, Tempo Storm has done a lot better job taking out the structures, but you just need one keep to be taken down to get at that core, to damage it. So if another fight goes that way, for Cognitive, especially now that both teams aren't even footing, they're just about to hit level 20.
Okay, we actually have a base race situation. Both teams picked up a boss, and we do have Cognitive marching down this top lane, but Tempo is already in the base. They summon the Water Elemental, and they are throwing everything they have at the core. Cognitive is just now reaching the core. Who is going to do it first?
But the damage output is so high.
It's way too much. A bit of a misstep. They thought they could do this, but Tempo takes that opportunity and eliminates the core. 2-0 victory. GG.
So nicely played. Wow, I can't believe that they went for that type of play. I think that's the damage output and just really that small amount of spacing between the two teams where they just were ahead by like half a lane going to the core. That makes the huge amount of difference. That's a couple seconds. When you add that up over 5 members of the enemy team, that's going to end up being about a 50% difference to the core, and that made or broke the game for them.
Yeah, I mean, it really started to look pretty good for them towards the end, taking out that keep, having that window of opportunity, but they thought they could do the Tempo Storm way. Tempo Storm loves to go behind enemy lines and try to just take a cheeky push at the end. Both teams had the same idea, but Tempo was a little bit sooner.
Yeah.
They had the damage potential that they needed to eliminate the core quickly, and they took a quick 2-0 victory.
All right, so Jake, the obvious question is, Cognitive, when they saw this, should they have backed up, and do you think they even had time to make this kind of call?
The unfortunate thing is if you're not in your base by the time they pass by that gate, it's not going to work out because of how quickly they can do that. Even if they eliminated 2 or 3 members of Tempo Storm, the damage is done, the Water Elemental is there, there's just so much damage potential on the field.
Absolutely. Okay, well, that is Tempo Storm taking a 2-0 advantage over Cognitive Gaming, so congrats to them. They will move on to the semifinals, and we're going to find out who they're going to be playing against in the next series. So we're going to go to a quick commercial break, get that series set up, guy, and we'll be back in just a few.